Good evening, everyone, and welcome and thank you so much for tuning in. I am so excited for tonight's conversation and welcome to Talks with Julia. I'm just elated already. But if this is your first time here, this is where we discuss topics that will help you to grow both professionally and personally. And tonight, I'm here to share with you some topics around why getting a job feels so impossible right now. And tonight, I am honored to welcome Keirsten Greggs as our guest expert this evening. And before we get into the topic tonight, because I feel like there's a lot of conversation around this right now, I want to properly introduce Keirsten and share a little bit about her. So, recognized as a top HR influencer to watch in 2023 and honored with the 2023 HR Unite Talent Acquisition Trailblazer Award winner, Keirsten Greggs is the visionary founder of Track Recruiter LLC, boasting an impressive 24-year career as a recruitment veteran. So, the right person for tonight's conversation. Keirsten dedicates herself to assisting organizations in attracting, selecting, and retaining top tier talent while empowering job seekers from historically excluded and underrepresented backgrounds to assert their voices in the hiring process. Her expertise has garnered recognition on a global scale with features from prominent media outlets such as BBC World Service Radio, ERE, Fast Company, Forbes, Hire Easy, HR Brew, In Her Sight, Madame Noir, Recruit CRM, Recruiting Daily, SiriusXM Urban View, and so much more. So in terms of someone who's perfect for tonight's conversation, it's definitely Keirsten. So Keirsten, welcome to the program. So happy to have you here for Women's History Month.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be in person with you. The last time we did a collaboration, it was on Twitter.
Yes.
Remember when they had first launched Spaces?
Yes,
yeah.
yes. What a time, and I feel like we're still having some of the same conversations when it comes to the job search, even though, we've gone through the pandemic and things have shifted. We went through the Great Resignation and all of that. And I feel like some of the pendulum is swinging back. And so for many job seekers, they're feeling like, what is going on in the job market right now? What is happening? I feel like I'm doing so much and I'm pushing forward and I'm not seeing results. And so I wanted to just kind of start with that conversation with you, like we were talking about backstage. So how would you describe the state of the job market right now? Because there's layoffs and there's so much opportunity and we're hearing so many different things. So I wanted to get your perspective on that.
Chaotic.
Okay.
Yeah.
Launch in.
Chaotic. Sometimes, depending on who you are, it might be amazingly chaotic. For someone else, it might be demoralizingly chaotic to the point that you're like, why? Like your title says, why is getting a job so hard right now? So it has just been frenzied. I don't think that we ever really reset, for lack of a better word, after what happened in 2020. And then, we had some lingering stuff in 2021 and 2022. I think people woke up on January 1st. We're just like, we're back to normal. Get over it. Wherever you are, that's where we are with it. Get over it. And I don't think that we fully reset in a way that not necessarily went all the way back to where we were, but that got us where we are. Like a lot of us are, again, still living in a pre-pandemic mindset as it relates to job searching and getting a job. Some of us are still in a pandemic mode, like that the height of it, where there was so much abundance. And, people were kind of like, if you'll come to work or if you'll work for us remotely, in person, whatever, like there's jobs available. Like we're trying to get everybody back to work. We're going to be more accommodating. So I think some people are still in that sense. And then, it's where we really are. And we don't know. Like, we don't know. It depends on depends on who you are. That's why I say it's just wholly chaotic.
And that kind of gets the segue to something else I want to follow up on around layoffs again, because I feel like there's been so much conversation around the tech layoffs, right? It's the big companies, it's the small companies, but is it really just tech that's laying off, or from your perspective, where are people seeing these pockets?
If anybody follows me, I hate to be like a doom, hate to have people doom scrolling, but I post layoffs almost every day. Um, at least once a week, we're talking about a large enough group of people getting laid off from companies that have put out their financial reports, and their financial reports don't necessarily line up with why they are letting a percentage of their staff go. So, like just yesterday, I think it was in Hollywood Reporter. Oh no, that's a different conversation. Sorry, that's a DEI conversation. But like the studios are laying people off. A lot of media is getting laid off. Print, online. Um, Folks are getting laid off there. Folks are still getting laid off in tech. Folks are getting laid off in the financial sector. Your big companies, your Merrill Lynch's, your that's insurance, but it's financial too. Your Citigroup and Bank of America, like these places are laying off their employees as well. So it's not just the San Francisco hub of people or the startups. That there is a lot of turnover, and there's a lot of starting and stopping at startups. So it's not just those companies. It's the Googles, it's the Facebooks, or Meta, whatever they're called now. It's the LinkedIn. When was that? Was that late last year or early this year? My time is completely off. I haven't had a sense of time since 2020, but like the place where you're supposed to go to get the jobs is laying people off. So
Right.
yeah, like it's been a big thing. It's across industries, it's across sectors.
And I think that may be part of why, you on the one hand you hear that the sky is falling,
Hmm.
but I think that the tech names have made more of a splash, right? Where
Yeah.
it's like, okay, if you're seeing Google's laying off people because the jobs looked like they were so good, everybody on TikTok, a day in my life in tech and all that kind of stuff, and it's like, wait, where did all of that go? But on the flip side of that, before we kind of get into why it feels like it's impossible, are there industries right now that are hiring? So who's actually bringing people in? Because part of the reason why it may be feeling impossible is that maybe people are looking in the wrong place, and we'll get deeper into it. But are there places that are truly hiring right now? So, like, is it, what industries
Hmm.
are hiring?
Healthcare is definitely hiring. Emerging industries like renewable energy are definitely hiring. You're seeing some tech companies that are hiring folks uh, into like energy type positions. So there's that. I know we're going to talk about it more in depth from different perspective a little later on. But anyone with interest in artificial intelligence is going to have an opportunity there, and it doesn't necessarily have to just be at a tech company. It doesn't necessarily have to be at a FANG. It could be someplace else. Margaret Spence is on. Hey, Margaret, and she says insurance. This is an industry that she supports. Insurance is hiring as well, and I know that we keep saying that they're not, but there's still a lot of jobs that are like e-commerce and jobs that are virtual that are still hiring in larger numbers than some of the places that we would traditionally first go to look for the biggest amount of jobs as well.
Okay, and I think that should hopefully give a level of comfort, right, to folks who are listening, and they may feel like, I've been on my job search, I'm not seeing anything, I'm having a hard time. It may be that depending on the industry that you're looking at, that may be why you're having a bit of a disconnect. And depending on your skill set, you may be able to take your skills from one industry to
Yeah.
another, right? So one that's not hiring, you could say, okay, maybe I try something now while the market is on this side, and then you can always shift and try something else later. That's the beauty of being able to move between organizations.
Hmm.
And so if we have some folks that are laying off and some companies that are hiring, and the sky isn't completely falling, let's get to the heart of the question. Why does it feel so impossible to find a job right now?
because you're operating in your own, like, first and foremost in your ecosystem.
Hmm.
So if you're in a state of flux, the likelihood that one other person or two other people are in that same state is going to be a little bit higher. We also spend a lot more time online, so we have access to a lot more people than we normally would. Sometimes those layoffs are geographical, meaning like a certain locations or certain areas of the country. And I know, I think we're just speaking to people in the United States, but sometimes there aren't jobs in your city that fit, like you said, your skill set, or you don't know that there are jobs at organizations because you're like, okay, I have a manufacturing or a logistics background. And you don't know that you can apply those skill sets to a government job. You can apply those skills to whatever the big industry is in your area. When I do coach people, that is one of the things that I look at, that I give them as a starting point for where, because the question is always, where do I look? And I'm like, well, who are the big employers in your in your city, in your immediate vicinity, depending on what they are open to in terms of uh, their work location. A lot of people are willing to go into an office.
Mm.
So, you have to look at that. And it's like, okay, well, this company does hire trainers. They might not have they might not have 15 jobs open right now. They might not have one job open right now, but they might be looking, in a month or two. Or who is their competitor? They're going to be hiring for that same type of person as well. So geography becomes an issue. Proximity becomes an issue. Uncertainty is also, because, depending on what information you're consuming, for a lot of people, they're like, the economy's great. For other people, they're like, the economy sucks. you know, they're like, unemployment numbers are the lowest. I'm like, yeah, but people have 4 jobs.
Trying to make ends meet, right?
Yeah, like, okay, sure. People have more jobs than they had, pre this current state as well. So, there's a lot of factors that go into it. But I will be transparent. I'm in an HR recruiting. I have an HR recruiting background, and I see so many people, recruiters, HR people specifically. Some of them have been looking for jobs for upwards of a year, or more, and that becomes extremely taxing on
Yeah.
you. Yeah, like, especially like the people that are charged with the hiring, like, that that's a tough spot to be in. And then if the organization isn't fully staffed, in the sense that their department, like their recruiting department, can't hire people quick enough or can't hire talent efficiently, like, that's why it looks like, okay, this company has 50 jobs open, yeah, but they only have one recruiter to fill them, so it
Mhm.
takes a little bit longer. You're not going to get an answer right away. So there's a lot of factors that go into hiring that we don't think about, because we can only see things really from our perspective. It's like, I, Keirsten, personally apply for this job. I, Keirsten, want an answer. We don't take into account that I, Keirsten, apply for this job. But Julia, the recruiter, the first gate in the hiring process, has that job with 1,000 applicants that she has to get to. Just that one job. What about the other? Well, we're going to be conservative, 4 jobs that Julia has to fill that have a number of applicants attached to them too. And then that's just the applicants. That's just the candidates. The hiring managers they have to come in contact with, the other stakeholders in the organization, whether you're a third party or a corporate recruiter, like, there's some additional people, there's additional involvement there. So it's a lot of uncertainty. But I don't want to give the impression that there's not also a lot of opportunity if you know where to look.
And I really appreciate you providing that context around the experience from the recruiter side, because like you said,
Mhm.
we're just on the assumption of like, I'm putting in all these job applications. Why is no one getting back to me? And it really may be, depending on where you're applying, that they may be understaffed, not even staffed, right? Or the job was closed and they weren't able to update anything. And so there's a lot of different factors that people are experiencing. And to Margaret's point, the volume of recruiter layoffs, because it's not just the organizations or the functional roles, it's the HR people and the recruiters that are also getting laid off. And so when you're understaffed to that degree, it's hard for you to be able to really move jobs along. So you feel like you applied for this job. I had a friend of mine who told me that they applied for a job and 4 months later they got called back. And it was like, well, at this point, I have other employment, but thank you for the courtesy of getting back to me. But it took 4 months, but it could be
Wow.
for reasons like this.
Yeah.
And so taking that into account, the fact that there may be some scarcity when it comes to recruiters, and there's so many different factors for job seekers who are thinking about, I want to actually build relationships with recruiters and hopefully have a better shot versus just scrolling online in perpetuity and hoping for the best. Where should they really go to try to make that connection, and what are effective ways for them to try to build those relationships?
Well, for one, things like this. Like, I know you do these shows. Is it weekly?
Weekly, yes, ma'am.
Yeah, you do these live shows weekly, and you're specifically speaking to job seekers about some part of the hiring process or some part of the job search process. So here, and not only will they get in contact with you or whoever you're interviewing at the time, they'll get in contact with the other people who are engaged and who are watching and who are leaving comments. They might not see it live, but they might see that recording and they might go through and read like, oh, wow, that's a great point. I didn't know that. And then they see Sally Smith is like, hey, by the way, if anybody I'm looking for an administrative assistant. If you know anyone, because
Yeah.
recruiters engage with these conversations too. It depending on how active they are, like I said, like they're leaving like job links. We're on LinkedIn and we're talking, but a lot of times the networking has to leave, that one LinkedIn post. That networking has to leave that one touch point. I probably have 200 unread messages right now.
Wow.
And I'm not trying to be, like be slick, but like I'm not even hiring right now. Like I can't imagine people who have their green hiring
Right.
banner activated, how many people are reaching out to them.
Mhm.
So you got to do more, like I said, than just that one touch point. I always say take it offline or do things that are that people don't traditionally do. I know it's a cesspool, but X, the platform formerly known as Twitter, I've built so many great relationships there specifically for the purpose of recruiting and for hiring. I met you on
Right.
Twitter.
I was gonna say that. I'm like, that's how
Yeah.
we met.
Like I met you on Twitter. And again, not only am I meeting you, but I'm getting to network out that way. Like, because you are connected to some amazing people as well. And they've probably been guests on your show or will be guests on your show in the future. And then that person will mention somebody. So you'll talk to them. You'll start to follow them. You'll see that, they're speaking at, XYZ company. Just, you gotta do more than, like I said, just look online. You gotta do more than just apply to jobs that are listed on LinkedIn or that are listed on Indeed. There's more to that. I believe it's Adam Karpiak. He has a newsletter, and I think for the past 2 weeks he's been listing all of the additional places that you can be searching for a job online. By the way, that does not include Indeed, that does not include LinkedIn. So make sure that you even do that. Like you can sign up to get someone's newsletter. That's one, and if you need a break, unsubscribe for a minute, like come back. Or if you want to subscribe to 4, 5, or 6, I recommend that too. There's some other resources. you can read up on. Just so I know there's a lot of information that's available right now, but the point is just to get to it. And again, I'm always transparent. Sometimes we get exhausted, sometimes we get tired, especially if we've applied to 30 jobs one day. Like,
Right.
you don't got to apply for 30 jobs again tomorrow. Like, calm down. Like, I'm not saying that in a negative way, but like, take a break, because you need that break. And you got to let those 30 people, maybe only 10 get in contact with you, but 10's a lot.
Right. Right. It's a matter of perspective. And I love the fact that you mentioned, taking a break, because if you make the job search a grind, it's easier for you to burn out of the process, or you just go through the motions. So trying
Yeah.
to nurture those real relationships and genuine connections becomes more difficult, because it's like, it's a means to an end. It's a means to an end, and you're trying to shuffle through it.
Yeah.
And you may be cutting corners and trying to build those relationships. Like you said, you may be just trying to send the one LinkedIn in-mail and hope for a response, when you really should be doing a lot more. And like you said, taking it offline, taking some non-traditional steps. So no, really appreciate that context. And I think you shared a little bit about kind of what job seekers should think about, but I want to ask a follow-up question.
Okay.
What is one thing that you wish job seekers knew when it came to the talent acquisition process? So we talked about some of the staffing with the recruiters and other things, but what's like one big thing that you wish that they knew, that you're just like, you want to shake people and say, listen?
Well, ugh, I don't think we have enough time for the things that they should know, because
Fair.
I've been doing this for 24 years, and I don't know everything about the talent acquisition process. Like, I learn something new every day. So I would say the ATS is not kicking you out. I think that's one of the biggest myths, one of the biggest misconceptions. There is no person inside of the computer. There is no internet demon that is stealing your resume and throwing it in the trash so a recruiter never sees it. That doesn't exist. An applicant tracking system is a filing cabinet. It is a storage place. It keeps things nice and tidy. So please, the ATS is not a living, breathing demon. It is a demon, but it's not the kind of demon that you think it is.
Okay. I mean, and just to stay on that point really quickly, because there are people who are making a whole living on, I'm going to get you ready for the ATS and the keywords, or I'm
Why
going
are
to.
you triggering me? Like, Julia,
I'm sorry, y'all. I'm sorry. Uh-oh. Keirsten needs a minute. That's okay.
Please ask your question.
So we just gonna move ahead. We're gonna
No. I think it's important. Ask your question.
So there are people who are truly making a living on saying, hey, I can help you get past the ATS. The ATS is, like you said, it's an internet demon, or it's truly like this gatekeeper that is ripping your resume apart or your cover letter apart, or whatever the case is, and you're not getting through. And so what is, I guess, how did that myth get out, I guess, or like, is there something that's truly looking at those keywords, or no?
Like you said, it's people are making a living off of it.
Fair.
If that myth doesn't perpetuate,
people don't get paid.
People don't get paid. Okay. So I will say this. The applicant tracking system is artificial intelligence. Okay. It's not, I know we love ChatGPT. We love all these other tools that are doing amazing things. But an ATS is an AI tool. It does make decisions. It does parse information. What do I mean by that? I know, like, depending on the system that you use, depending on the ATS, it takes your resume and it looks at the information and it says that's an address, that's an email address, that's that's education. This is a job. This is a job title. These are the years that that are associated with that. So it does do there's some machine thinking and some machine learning, but that's the best it can do. There's still a human being who is looking at those things. Now, here's another way. So people are like, oh, I'm going to beat the ATS. I think that they're talking about things like, this position require. So I'm going to say, like, here's a pre-screening question, or a qualifying question, we'll call them. This position requires knowledge of, ABC software. Do you have this knowledge? Yes or no? So people who don't will say yes, because they think they're going to get past the gate. Okay. Or they think they're being ranked. They think they're being scored. So, but then there's also the person who's just trying to get their application done, or who may have clicked the wrong button, who actually does have that skill set that they need, and they click the wrong answer. So there is a recruiter who is going to, in most cases, depending, like, they're going to see your profile. They're going to see how you answer questions, and depending on how much information is in your profile, they're going to be like, oh, that person does have a bachelor's degree, and this position requires a bachelor's degree. So yeah, I'm going to move them forward to to at least the screen section. So we're working hand in hand with the ATS. It's helping us be a little bit more efficient. It's highlighting those things that we're looking for anyway, that we may have missed. But what people are doing when they're saying, I'm going to beat the ATS, like, they're putting keywords in white writing,
so in the white font, right? Like, be for real. So
yeah.
Okay. And so I really appreciate that, because I feel like there have been some myths around the ATS. And so for some people who are spending all this time with the white font and, tooling and retooling their resume.
Please don't do that.
Don't
highlight the skills that you have. If you see that job description. So here's the thing: you see that job description, and now there are AI tools that can do that for you. I used to use word clouds before GPT was more readily available, or any other tools that you want to use. Like, take your resume, take this tool, and they'll tell you how you line up, or they'll tell you what are the most prominent skills. You know what? Go take a course. LinkedIn has, they're not my favorite people, but LinkedIn has. I'm sorry, LinkedIn. I'm streaming to you right now. You are wonderful, wonderful, wonderful.
Thank you so much for your service.
You are amazing. I appreciate you. I love you very much.
I'm speaking life into LinkedIn right now.
Maybe they will not. Maybe they will be kinder to me going forward. Oh, sorry. It's 8:30. Like, it's 9:00 here. So I'm having a good time. This is post happy. I didn't have happy hour. I've been working all day, but like, this is what I'm calling like happy hour. Like, my break time. So I apologize. What was the question?
No. You were basically just telling us about taking a course using LinkedIn.
Oh, take a LinkedIn course. Coursera has free courses as well. Like, you can learn a new skill in your free time, maybe carve out an hour, and, upskill yourself, get yourself used to that. Or people who are currently working, who have talent development departments that offer free courses for your department, or you're already working. You're interested in another subject matter, you're interested in another area. Go talk to someone in your company who does that, or go talk to the person at your, your community activity who does that job that you're interested in, or who works at that company that you want to work at. Build a rapport with them, build a relationship, that expands beyond, your first connection to them, and do all of those. And you can learn new things, but you're only going to get so far with having a whole bunch of words, with having Python and Linux in your resume, and you don't have any other skill set or any other jobs that relate to why you would have that on your resume. Like, you haven't done any of those things functionally. So please don't do those things. Please don't.
And I think you make a really good point as to, instead of just focusing on trying to add the keywords, get the experience, because they're going to
Yeah.
look at the job itself and see, hey, what have you actually done? So yes, you have Python, yes, you have project management, whatever it might be, but they're going to look and see, how did you deploy those skills in the job you had? And
Yes.
if you've got, like, I was a customer service rep and I did this and that, and then you didn't go through any of that, it's like, well, we see the skills here, but you haven't deployed them. So how do we know that you're going to deploy those skills in the role, or you're going to know how to? So no, I really do love that. And so I want to switch gears for a second, because this is something that really just gets me going. When it comes to this kind of impossibility in the job market, why do you think companies have created this crazy interview process? And I want to know what recruiters and talent acquisition folks think about this, where it's like, we've got 25 interviews and we want you to build a house and take home and
not build a house.
like Mokito. And it's like, why do you think they created this process? And I wanted to know what recruiters think about this. Like, are they happy with this 25 interview process?
No.
Okay.
So I'm going to answer, what do recruiters think about it first?
Okay.
No.
Because
we want to get to the next hire. We want to get to the next job as quickly as possible. Like, we want you to get hired. Because for every person that you have come in contact with, we come in contact with 3 more minimum to do those same things. Like, a lot of our time is spent trying to get schedules together and all that. So the least amount of interviews that we can have, the better.
Okay.
Also, why do companies do it? Number one, a few reasons. They're not ready to hire. They don't really know what they want. Their process is either non-existent or wholly inefficient.
Ooh. Spill the tea, Keirsten. Spill the tea.
They have an idea of what they want from a person. But if someone shows them something else, they'll think about that too. So when you're talking about these like all these tests and all these projects, like, I hate them. I've done them. I stopped doing them when a big company who will remain nameless stole my presentation. That's a different conversation.
We gotta come back for part 2. We're gonna come back for part 2, y'all.
No, I'll never say. But just know, I know what you did. So, like, those types of work, get paid for them. Like, you're pretty much a 1099 at that point, unless it's something that, like, there's no reason why you should be writing someone's code, like why you should be solving someone's actual work problem in the interview process if you're not hired. And again, a lot of those things are done because their processes are inefficient, their processes are non-existent, they don't know how to hire. And they think that that's what they're supposed, and a lot of times they think what they're supposed to do. On the recruit, and you're like, well, you just said recruiters hate that. Recruiters hate these long processes, blah, blah, blah. Well, there are a lot of recruiting teams that aren't empowered. There are a lot of recruiting teams who aren't seen as a partner. They're seen as a transaction, not as a strategy. Like, you're the person who pushes buttons and sends people to me and hires people, and then I give you something. Like, you don't exist unless I give you something. Unless I have a job to give you, you don't exist. Like, that's how a lot of folks see recruiting teams. And that's some of the reasons, because recruiter teams don't have a voice in the process, and they don't have any way to empower. And sometimes recruiters don't know how to empower candidates. And sometimes recruiters don't know how to partner with and counsel their hiring teams. So,
and I want to go back to something you said about them, kind of getting free work done, right? And so for candidates who are feeling like, hey, they're asking me to truly build this house and then present it, but they feel like they're being taken advantage of, but hey, they really need a job. What would be your recommendation to that person who's like, man, I don't want to build this house and present it because they're taking my free labor, but I've got a family to feed. What are your thoughts for those folks?
No, that's tough. And don't get me wrong. Every project is not dubious. Every project is not free labor. And I say this because there are some interview processes that have like, I don't even want to call them standard, but like they're not behavioral questions, like they're actual technical questions that have been used, and like these are or they're doing scenarios that they've been using for years and years and years and years, or it's a problem that's already solved and they want to
to see how you would do it,
to see how you would do it as well. Or technology continues to update, so maybe there's like there's certain questions that they'll ask you, like what would you use to do X, Y, and Z. So there's things like that aren't a big deal. One thing I will say to kind of weed out those things that are dubious. Number one, if you have the time and you like, it's down to, I don't begrudge anyone a job. So if it's like you said, like you have the time to do it, you don't really have a problem with it. It's like sometimes, like when I was first doing it, like I didn't really have a problem with it until I realized I should have a problem with it. It's like, wait a minute, like that's not how that works.
Right.
So think about that. A lot of these things are timed as well. So if they're saying, hey, I'm going to give you this set of questions, or I'm going to give you these problems to solve, you have X amount of time. Like those are the ones that like usually aren't that dubious, or they schedule a time for you to get them done. They're not just like sending you off into the abyss and then you never hear from them again. They might be managed by an entirely different outlet. Like those type of things, like they're not trying to get over on you. And again, we hear about so many. We always only hear about the worst of it, which is why it seems like anytime somebody gets a project, they're stealing you. They're getting free labor from you, because we're only hearing about the outliers and the exceptions. We're not hearing about those being a regular part of the process. And I will say that another way to kind of not feel taken advantage of in those situations is to communicate what the process is to you up front. We do a pre-screen, we do a panel interview, and then we do a project that is X, Y, and Z, and that is and this takes the 2 weeks. Like that's our process. Like when they give you those parameters up front, that's when you can feel a little bit more at ease and feel a little bit better, because it's not just you, everybody is doing it.
And I think that that's probably the underpinning with some of the process is just that communication, right? Where it feels like that communication is missing. And honestly, if someone knew, hey, this is part of the process, they're not trying to get over. It's like, hey, we do this for everyone, get on board or don't, but this is how we do things. Right. I think people would feel more confident that, hey, this is just part of the job search journey, rather than they're just trying to get over and get free labor. Right.
And if you don't want to do it, and they tell you at the beginning of the process, and you're like, oh, whoa, like I don't do that, then right then, before you get deep into it, cut it off and move on to the next opportunity.
And you mentioned something a second ago where you talked about sending your stuff into the abyss and never hearing from the recruiter or the team again. Why do you think that recruiters are ghosting candidates? I mean, we're hearing only the bad stories. That's fair. But you're hearing so many people saying, I never heard from that recruiter again, and I did all this work, and I gave it my best shot, and I keep getting ghosted. Why do you think that happens in the process? Is there something that we just don't know and should we be taking it personally?
Sometimes.
Okay, fair.
I know some people disagree with me, but I don't think it's ghosting when you just applied to the job and you didn't get a personal message. And I don't mean the automated message that says, "Dear Keirsten, thank you for your interest in ABC company, DEF position. We have selected another candidate." And no one has had a conversation with you. No one has screened you for that role. Like, no one has done those things. I don't consider that ghosting. There are some people in recruiting and in HR and in employment influencing who will say that that's ghosting too, that everybody deserves a communication. And I do agree that is a communication. It just might not be the communication that you want. So I don't consider that ghosting. Okay. Because on the flip side, there's also candidate ghosting. So if a candidate never applied to the job, did they ghost you? No, they didn't. Okay. But why do you get ghosted? Again, an inefficient process. A recruiter who might not be confident and well versed enough to tell you the truth.
Wow.
And sometimes that truth is, my hiring manager is a horrible human being and they won't give me any feedback. I've been chasing them down for weeks. Or my hiring manager is an awful human being and they said some terrible things about you. Or you probably shouldn't have even applied for this job anyway, because we were never going to hire you in the first place. It was just something we had to do for compliance. I'm not saying you have to do it for compliance, but something that we decided was going to keep us compliant. So we just interviewed 3 people just to say we did it. But we already knew who we were going to hire. So you have some recruiters who don't know how to say things in a diplomatic way, or don't know how to give people feedback. Okay. They don't know how to cut that cord. So they just opt out. They just opt out. You have people who, and these are rare occasions, who, you might feel like this is when the ghosting, you take it personal. When you have not heard from like when you've been, like, the communications been there, and then you don't hear from them anymore because the recruiter got laid off. and nobody picked it up, or nobody picked it up yet. Like, nobody got to you yet to continue on the process. So there's some of that. But the reasons for ghosting are not always, again, what we think they are. It does happen. I don't think it happens as much as we like to pretend it does, because, again, my definition of ghosting means that I'm in the midst of I'm at some point with you. I'm at I've had conversations with you, like I'm building a rapport with you as a candidate. And I do owe you that, that response. And I went back to saying, you'll get a communication. It may not be the communication that you want. So in those situations, especially when someone is, like I said, like they weren't selected for the job, they were the top 2 was a bad decision. And a recruiter says, hey, I have feedback for you. Would you like it? Would you like to have, and they tell you this because of, time constraints, whatever. They tell you, like, that you weren't selected, they give you, that someone else was, whatever they tell you, like, in that short little sentence. And they're like, if you would like more feedback, would you like to have a phone call? So you leave it up to the job seeker to be like, yes, I want to hear from you again. Yes, please, let's set up a time to talk. And it's some recruiters that don't give you that option as well. But I am the type that, recommends that recruiters give that option, that you would have a phone call, that you will have a conversation with them. And I don't think there's too many that will say, I'm not doing it, or do it and then not follow through.
No, and I think that's a helpful context for those who may be listening, thinking about recruiters are unfeeling people, right? But it sounds like for a lot of recruiters, they want to share feedback, they want to engage with you, but it may be that the organization that they're working with has made the process difficult for them, and they're trying to figure out, how do I actually get back to this person and say something? Because I don't want to crush the person's hopes and dreams in this industry. You don't know how long they've been applying. People are getting laid off. I mean, there's so many factors, and to your point, we always hear about the bad things. So it may not be that everybody's getting ghosted the way that the way that it's being presented on social media. So I want to make sure that we're getting through the rest of the questions.
Oh, okay.
So that so that I can make sure that you are respectful of your time. And so I wanted to ask the question the other way. So the first time I asked about job seekers connecting with recruiters. So for recruiters who are now looking to source, because you hear them saying, well, where's all the good talent? Where are the people? And so I've seen recruiters saying things like that, like, I'm trying to find the right talent. So where should recruiters really be? Is it we talked about LinkedIn already, but in terms of recruiters trying to connect with the talent they need for these positions and trying to match up the skill sets, where should they really be going to best source their talent?
They should be looking in their network. When I've had independent roles I've been recruiting for, whether they be the CEO of a nonprofit, or I had roles with like a diamond company, like a diamond buyer. I didn't know anything about a diamond buyer,
Okay, all right.
I don't have no diamonds to buy. Like, come on. So I had to expect. I literally went to the mall to like other store, like to go to stores and like talk to jewelers. Like, so where do you look for but the most that you could tell me, because I don't want to be too proprietary, so I'll go in and talk to talk to people and find out. I happen to know a lot of recruiters, so I'm going to talk to other recruiters. If I'm looking for a media buyer, and I know folks that work in PR, or that work in a magazine, or that work in a newspaper, or that work in entertainment, like, I'm gonna be like, hey, do you know anybody that's can you recommend a person? And they're like, oh yeah, you know what? I'm going to share on my network. Like, and they, like, other people do those things. So recruiters need to use their network just like job seekers do. Like, it's not a matter of just sitting there putting in keywords.
Right.
All right, that wasn't nice.
No, but it's real though. I mean, that's what we promise, is a real conversation. And I like the idea of using your network the same way that you expect job seekers to show up. Recruiters also need to show up, because if everybody's showing up, then we have a better chance at finding and matching up and finding the right opportunities. And so the last couple questions I wanted to ask, and you've talked a little bit about this, is AI. And so I wanted to talk about AI kind of just on a more broad scope, is like, how is it playing a role in the recruiting process today? What should candidates be thinking about? Should they be afraid of AI in their job search process? Because there's like we talked about some of the myths with the ATS, and AI is taking over all the jobs, right? And so there's so much being said. So I wanted to get your thoughts on that.
Okay. Should you be afraid? No. I'll say that in a general sense. Should you be afraid of AI taking every job? No. Should some jobs be automated? Yes. Let me say some jobs. Should some tasks be automated? Yes. Okay. I am wholly advocating for job seekers utilizing AI to make their job search better, to optimize it. The same way that I'm for recruiting teams using AI to make their recruiting process more efficient, and to take out what I call the waste. Like, if you have an AI tool that can schedule your interviews for you, great. Now your coordinators can be training and upskilling to do something that helps you be a better recruiter, so that they can too be a better recruiter. And then you can stop ghosting 5 people a month and go 0. Like, congratulations. job seekers can use AI. If you know the right, if you're using the right prompts, because that's a lot of it. It's knowing the right questions to ask and knowing which tools to use for the specific purpose that you need it for. I do not advocate for you asking AI to write your resume.
Ooh. Okay.
No. You can use AI as a tool to help you find your voice, to help you bring out the best of your achievements, uh, to help you think about yourself in the role that you're interested in. So you told them, hey, I'm looking at this network engineer role. Write a resume for that. Well, AI is going to just copy copy and paste the job description and make it sound like you. And then you'll have people that, if 5 people do that, they all got the same resume.
Yeah.
Yeah, some words might be turned around, but AI still hasn't gotten to the point, or generative AI still hasn't gotten to the point where it sounds fully human. And I will tell you this, like, again, while I'm not in a right now, like filling roles in that capacity, I am still very connected to the talent acquisition and recruiting process. So I am using these things, and I can tell when someone's resume is AI. I'm like, did you use, like, I've had a coaching client. I'm like, I told you to revise your resume. I was like, did you? I was like, is this
like, ChatGPT? I've seen this before.
I was like, did you do this? And they're like, what? I was like, you don't talk like that. Like, that doesn't sound like a person. Like, come on. How many times are you going to use this word? Like, don't do that. So I'm all for that. So you don't have to feel like it's just going to be like, oh, I just threw this in there and it's done. No, you still have to revise your resume. You still have to know what prompts to use. But I'm a fan. I'm excited about the new things that it can do. I'm a little cautious because, being who I am, bias is still very, very prevalent. And AI, that's another reason why you shouldn't just be copying and pasting.
Facts.
Because, ooh, okay, good luck with that. But there's some things that we can learn. But as we get smarter, AI gets smarter. As AI gets smarter, we get smarter, and so on.
And I like the idea of not being afraid because of what it can actually offer you, right? Going through the job search process is difficult enough if you've got to do multiple applications and multiple interviews. So being able to use it to your benefit as a job seeker can at least take some of the burden off your shoulder, so you can practice properly for interviews, rehearse your questions, continue to network, because you're not spending so much time just trying to thesaurus your way to a better resume.
Thesaurus, yes. So
you know what I mean?
Another point. So there's applicant tracking systems that have AI for candidates, meaning you put your resume in, and like I said, it parses your data, and then it will give you the opportunity. Hey, do you want us to send you jobs that you might be interested in? That's another way to tell. Am I really speaking to what I want to do? Am I really being clear on what my objectives and what my goals are? And again, that could help you search better, because if it keeps sending you, like, again, I'm a person who, puts other people's resumes into systems or searches for jobs for other people to see what's available and to fine tune their search terms and things like that. So, I get a lot of prompts for jobs, or depending on what I've been doing on LinkedIn that month. And they're like, LinkedIn might think I'm some kind of like actuary scientist, and I'm like, please stop. Yeah, like there's things like that. So like if I'm constantly searching for actuary science, or if the person that you're stalking, and don't pretend like you're not, if the person that you're stalking is like in a completely different field than you are, you're gonna start getting jobs that align with their profile.
Right. So no, that's I mean, and I hadn't even thought about that you could actually use that to get the prompt, so that you're not even searching for the jobs all the time. That jobs
Yeah.
are coming to you. So AI has so many ways that it can help you to make the process easier. So it takes a little bit of the burden off your shoulder. So instead of being afraid of it, it's something that we should embrace because
Yeah.
it actually helps through the process.
Yeah.
And so I mean, we've had such a good conversation tonight. I'm just I like so many jobs, so much stuff that I didn't know.
Listen, I hope your audience is not like, who is this crazy lady? But I was here to have a good time, and I feel like we gave them what they needed, and I had a good time on top of it.
Exactly. I mean, and me as well. And I learned a ton. And so before we wrap up, though, I got to get one more thing out of you. What would be one final piece of advice for someone who's listening right now who feels like they're not getting seen by recruiters, no matter what they do, they're just feeling beaten down in the process? Any final words of advice?
Don't be discouraged. And I know that sounds very cliche, especially when you're in a position when you feel like you're just never going to break through. And the thing is that the job search is very unpredictable. You might be doing everything right for that time, but if you haven't, maybe adjusted, the times that you apply for a job, the days that you apply for a job. If you've been too, scared to reach out to that one person who you really want to get connected to, who you really want to get in front of because you didn't have anything to say that, you don't feel like they have anything to say, or they haven't posted any positions, or, you feel like their level is too high. Like, you never know. Like, there are so many people who don't even know you're listening. And the best thing I can say to folks is a lot of people job search in secret, meaning they're not discoverable. So you're looking for a job, you're worn down, you're exhausted because you're the only one participating in your job search. You haven't let anybody know that you need help. You haven't told anyone what types of positions you're interested in. You haven't told anyone what companies you're interested in. You haven't asked anyone if they will refer you to a position because, you might be feeling like, oh, well, especially if you're unemployed, like you might be feeling like, oh, well, I don't want anyone to know, or, oh, well, I'm a little, it is what it is. But unless you're willing to not be the only participant in your job search, it's going to take a lot longer.
And I love the idea of like you said, bringing people along for the ride with you, asking for help. So many of us feel like we have to do this alone for whatever reason. And like you said, that's what's wearing us down. If we had reached out, because you may know somebody who's at the company, have you talked to them? Or if your brother has a friend that works at the company that you want to work at, taking advantage of the people around you can shorten the distance between you and that new opportunity. So I love that advice. So Keirsten Greggs, thank you so much for tonight's conversation. So rich, so valuable. And I know that people are going to want to connect with you after this. So where can the people find you online?
I'm everywhere at Trap Recruiter.
Okay, very simple and consistent. And so I want to say thank you again, Keirsten, for your time. And thank you all for tuning in this evening. The recording will be available. Again, if you need to run it back because you missed something, and share it with your friends, share it with your neighbors, because this was such a good conversation. We'll be back on Monday with our solo episode. Thank you again for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, everyone.